Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of The Shrimp Tank, coming to you virtually from Seattle and the Pacific Northwest, and today, north of the border as well. Now listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here, it's the podcast for you. This is where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello, I'm Dan Whedon, along with this week's co-host, Phil Simchich. Phil is coming to us from north of the border. You'll learn more about Phil soon. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts: iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and of course on YouTube. Listen, we are ubiquitous. We come to you from right now about a dozen cities, including Atlanta, Boca Raton, Boston, and Phil, I don't know if you knew this, we're starting in Knoxville and Columbus, Ohio very soon. Today, our guest is Doug Hall from Resources for CEOs. I've known Doug for, I think, about 9 years, as we were talking beforehand. I'm excited to have him on the show. Before we bring on Doug to learn more about him and his business, Doug, hold tight. We're going to be talking to you in just a second. Phil Simchich, you're official. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here. As you described recently from my virgin voyage, I think you called it.
Your virgin voyage from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. And Phil, what I'm really excited about is the border is still closed between the United States and Canada. I can't make it over to Victoria, but at least we're still doing this.
Yeah, you bet. Borders don't matter right now with Zoom and technology.
Hey, you and I have one thing in common as we talk a little bit about technology. You and I both have the Apple Watch, don't we?
We do. And it's
and in fact, Siri just popped up as I said that. So I think she thinks I'm going to be talking to her soon. But you and I have been doing some competition, some competing on fitness stuff on Apple Watch. And you, sir, are kicking my butt.
Some people are more competitive than they appear, or that their serious demeanor may show. And some people may have been semi-professional, addicted to exercise athletes in their past and like a good competition. But it's all fun, and I think it's really motivational for everybody to see the specific stats, and it gets people going. So yeah, it's the power of competition and information.
Yeah, it's funny because I know you are a CFO at heart as well, or not a CFO, but a CPA. I don't know where CFO came from. A CPA at heart, and you like the numbers. And as I've come to kind of learn by watching the fitness stuff, numbers are important. Doug Hall, I'm going to welcome you to the show. You also have an Apple Watch, so we're Steve Jobs is probably somewhere having a libation on us. But Doug, I got to believe you work with leadership teams, and I'm going to ask you in this question to talk a little bit about that work with leadership teams. But I got to believe some of the metrics that Phil and I talk about when we're talking about fitness, you need some metrics to apply to the work you do with these leadership teams, don't you?
I do. Hey, Dan and Phil, great to be here. You guys are, you threw me a strike right across the plate. Numbers, scorecards, scoreboards, flash reports, metrics reports, KPIs, OKRs. I mean, I can go on, but anything you can measure in an organization can be used to help you determine if things are going in the direction you want to go, or they're going in another direction which you don't want to go. So numbers can be our friends.
Awesome. So when you're working with teams, and usually, let's say you're starting with a new client, you're walking into this, what are their typical metrics that they have in place before you start, and where do they end up?
Yeah, Phil, that's a great question. The typical set of metrics, I will use both the classic name and I'll use my own fun name. Trailing indicators are what almost all smaller businesses operate off of. And I like to use the analogy of a vehicle, where if we're driving a truck or a car, we have a couple of sets of things at our disposal. The rear view mirror, though, tells us what already happened. So looking at your P&L, looking at your balance sheet, that's all looking backwards. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just not complete. Would you drive down the road with your eyes on the rear view mirror all the time? Of course not. So I always find teams sort of talking about the results, and I love results, but it's always backward looking. So that's the first phase of measurables that I usually find.
So to use that then to move forward to my question, because you just said it's really tough. You have teams looking behind a lot. What are some of the things that you can do to help them to transition to looking more forward down the road?
Yeah, that's a good one, Dan. So my work involves serving as a coach to an owner and their leadership team. And one of the probably 5 main areas I operate in is helping them get their numbers, get their scorecard or their scoreboard under control. Much like, we're football, baseball fans around here, maybe even hockey fans, Phil. The final score is not the whole story. There's usually quarters or periods. So we need to be looking at the changing of numbers through the periods of the game. I like to move teams from the rearview mirror to the dashboard. Now, what's the dashboard? The dashboard's what's happening right now, or it just happened. Like it's instant feedback, right? So how much fuel do I have? How fast am I going? What's my oil pressure? Do I have any warning lights, right? Those are all real time. And we tend even bigger companies tend to obsess over dashboard, like what's changing now? Well, what they're looking for is they're looking for instant reaction to change in inputs. So just like your vehicle, if you turn the wheel left, you expect the car to go left. How do you know it's going left? You feel it and you see it through the windshield. So I would say the feeling and the change of view through the windshield is your predictive indicator. It's your lead indicator. So lead indicators, current dashboard indicators, and trailing indicators in the rearview mirror. Those are the 3 levels that I'll work with a leadership team and really push them to get out in the windshield. What are you looking at out there? What controls are you using? Turning, brakes, gas, shifting gears? What are you doing that predicts a result that ends up on your P&L? That's the metaphor that I use with teams, and it really seems to help them. And we got to get out of the back seat and move up to that windshield and get looking forward. So that's the work with a leadership team.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you're shifting from lagging indicators. And as Dan mentioned, I am a CPA and I have done CFO consulting for decades. So that's where that came from, Dan. But those are financial statements according to GAAP, prepared for external users like bankers and shareholders, investors, right? They're not for management team.
Nope.
The financial statements are a terrible management tool. So you're talking about lead indicators and current indicators. Could you give us an example, say in a manufacturing company, what some of those lead indicators or current indicators might look like, so people can take the car metaphor?
Right. So let's get out through the windshield a little bit. Let's say you have a small manufacturing firm. So you've got a group of folks in operations, you've got folks in shipping and receiving, you've got some kind of a sales team, you got some kind of an accounting finance team. So each of those would be challenged to think of a lead indicator. So let's start with an easy one like marketing. How many campaigns did we run and how many leads came in off that? How many inquiries? That would be a lead indicator starting in the marketing funnel coming down towards sales. With sales, it would be how many proposals did we submit? Again, that's pre-reactive because a potential customer has to work with us. Maybe a more proactive lead indicator would be how many account management client meetings did you have? You have 20 clients in our manufacturing firm. We're looking for more. How many maintenance meetings did you have and how many prospecting meetings did you have? So both of those are pretty good lead. In manufacturing, it's machine uptime. That tends to be a dashboard, but machine utilization, another dashboard thing, maybe something around lean improvements. And that rolling out lean, which is continuous improvement and elimination of waste. There's human activity that's required to get lean implemented on the manufacturing floor. Apart from that, manufacturing tends to be a little bit reactive, and they usually do tend to zero in on machine availability, machine utilization, efficiency stats, which again, frankly, they're all dashboard. But so we struggle a little bit on the floor to get out through the windshield, but sales and marketing, it's super easy. Finance, accounting, again, they struggle a little bit, like cash flow, days of sales outstanding for AR, outreaches to clients, follow-ups on invoices. These are all human activities that accounting people can schedule and manage themselves. And I think that's the
department is like a museum, because they're just focused solely on the past. So yeah,
they are collecting history.
Yeah. So they need that management shift to the future, definitely. So you mentioned lean. And so our local government invested heavily in lean for the healthcare system, and the specific terminology ended up sinking millions and millions of dollars down the hole. So how do you apply common sense and language that people buy into to have, say, a lean or any kind of consulting project work better?
Well, I think it starts with what do you want? And I think the essence of lean is continual improvement and elimination of waste. And both of those are good things. The challenge is getting it to be actual and real. And one of my favorite resources I'll share with you guys, I'm sort of a book guy. One of our colleagues in the industry up in Bellingham, Washington, named Paul Akers, that's Akers, wrote a book called 2 Second Lean. He's popularized lean. He's got a bunch of videos, a lot of YouTube. And it's a very, very approachable human view of lean. He's a businessman, entrepreneur. He is not an engineering technocrat. So I strongly recommend Paul T. Akers and his 2 Second Lean. His idea was, hey, in your work site, whatever work you do, may I challenge you to save 2 seconds per day on something in your work? Just time yourself. It takes 3 minutes to do an invoice. Could you do it in 2:58 tomorrow? Could you make yourself more efficient and not working harder? This is, I think lean is the classic work smarter, not harder. And I always wondered, like, well, how could I be smarter? How can I work smarter? The point is find ways of being more efficient. That's smart work. And I think lean thinking gets us to that point.
So Doug, I'm going to stay on this whole car theme, but I'm going to take us back to the garage. Okay. So
all right,
all three of us probably at some point had a car that started sputtering, right? We knew something was wrong with it. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never been a car guy. I didn't know what was wrong other than it's sputtering. Something's not right. Something's wrong. I got to believe, because I know you work with both small and medium-sized business, but you also, you have businesses that are as small as, 10, 20 employees and such, I think.
Yep.
These CEOs may have absolutely no idea why it's sputtering or where to find the mechanic, which might be you. What is going through their head? What is the biggest issue that drives people to seek out someone like Doug Hull?
Yeah, so that's a great lead-in question, Dan. What I see with my clients, the people that go through a process of talking to me and getting to know me, they want coaching for not just themselves as the owner CEO, but they want help with their leadership team or forming their managers into a real leadership team so that they can delegate and elevate themselves. Most of my clients have reached a point where they were enlightened and said, maybe I'm the block here. Maybe it's more me than them. And they get a little stuck. In general, I work best with folks who've already worked on marketing and sales, operations, and finance and admin. In other words, they've sort of optimized their functional level, but they really haven't optimized their leadership. And they're really not ready to grow to the next level. So I help them with what I would call internal growth, the ability to build an effective leadership team, which then gives them a platform to grow externally with more customers or clients, more employees, more layers of management. Because frankly, most entrepreneurs, most business owners start with people around them and they run out of growth when they can't spin around and answer everybody's questions or tell them all what to do. So you can only spin so fast, people. So at around 12 people, they just run out of gas. And breaking through that sort of like a sound barrier to get to 20 employees and stay there, get 25, get 30. Those are key breakthrough points. I think another one's around 50 employees, right? It starts getting more complex, but that 12 employee threshold is sort of the first sound barrier. And it's usually helping the owner get outside of their own head and start creating real leadership. And by the way, I love that. That's my favorite work. It's just helping the owner make that transition and helping those managers become leaders.
I can hear it in your voice, but we're gonna have to break a sound barrier here and drive straight into a commercial, Doug. So we're gonna take a short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Doug Hall, and we're not doing any more auto parts. We're going to be doing resources for CEOs. For our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out if high school is the proving ground for the future CEOs. Don't walk away. We'll be right back. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Would you like to grow your business, increase revenues, and raise profits? Would more financing from your banker help you grow? Who is guiding your succession plan? Would you like more control over your business so you can sleep better at night? SME Business Wealth Builder works with business leaders and owners like you to help them grow their business and build their business wealth. For more information and to check out free resources, go to SMEwealthbuilder.com.
All right, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Phil Simchich, and our guest today is Doug Hall with Resources for CEOs. And for our next segment, Hot or Not.
And Doug, Hot or Not is where Phil and I pepper you with questions about business, maybe about some life balance things, whole bunch of topics. And you're going to tell us if the concept is hot or not and why. And at the end, you win absolutely nothing. So I mentioned something about high school.
I can hardly wait.
Yeah, well, hardly wait for your parting gift. Hot
really?
or not, Doug, captains of high school sports teams, both boys and girls, they make better CEOs. They're gonna turn into they have a high chance of becoming CEOs. Is leadership in high school sports proving ground for the future entrepreneurs?
Could be. I'm going to say not, because I think lots of times high school athlete leaders get thrust there because of their physical development and their skill set. It may or may not give rise to their mental leadership capability. So I'm going to go with not, although a fair number of them, I'm sure, end up in developing their real leadership skills, not just their ability to throw a football or kick a soccer ball.
So Phil, I'm just going to, before you do your hot or not, I got a lot of leadership skill watching the coach lead because I was sitting on the end of the bench. So that was
Lots of good observation, Dan, huh?
Maybe it's the other way around. Phil, go ahead.
All right, so hot or not, business changes start from the top down. So the CEO says and everybody does, or is there innovation from somewhere else in leadership and change management?
Well, I think it's a hot topic, and I think self-aware business owners realize that bottlenecks are at the top of the bottle for a reason. So the more aware they are that they generally are not only the spark plug in their own mind, but they're the bottleneck, they're the restriction in the system. So every business founder, leader, visionary, more or less recognizes that or chooses to ignore it. And I think the most enlightened owners get that soon, and they actively work on removing themselves from the firing line and getting other more capable people to take over and do what they're good at. Because, right, very few business owners are naturally gifted at everything, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's the same as the high schoolers we were talking about. The owner becomes the leader because they're the owner, not because they're the best leader.
indeed.
So, Doug, I'm guessing that in your work, you get to know that your CEOs very well, not only them, but the leadership team. Hot or not, personal relationships with clients, or is it business only?
Well, it's a hot topic, and I think everybody needs to find their own way on that. I would say I have friendly interactions with my clients, but in making them clients, I wasn't seeking them to make them my friends. So I'm not separating them. One of the things, in fact, I'll throw this out as an inducement. I happen to own a 38-foot boat, and we do happy hour cruises. So I invite clients, I invite my referral partners and other folks to enjoy the lovely Lake Union or
handsome
around.
and charming podcast guests or podcast hosts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Absolutely. In fact, I can even pop over to Paulsbo and pick you up. So even better, right, Dan?
Even better.
Phil, it'd be hard to get to Regina. Sorry about that, dude.
We're a little landlocked.
Yeah, indeed. But I do like to mix it up. I think
Sure.
the social interaction is very important with clients and customers, and it helps us gain another point of view, right? When there's a little bit of personal information intermixed with all business, I think it makes it more fun.
All right. So along the leadership lines, as a business owner, you need to share your reasons for a decision with your employees, hot or not.
It's hot. And I think that what's even more important than the specific reason is aligning with the core values and the core purpose of the organization, and drawing a line saying, my decision is in line with our core purpose and our core values. And specifically, I did it in this time frame because of that. Now, even better would be getting the counsel of your leaders, right, before making that decision. But a business owner, CEO can do whatever they want. So I think it's a hot topic, and I think taking counsel and also explaining is giving consideration to your employees.
So Doug, we didn't dig up any dirt on you. We dug up a lot of snow because our crack staff found out that you have been a professional ski instructor for a long time. And I'm curious, what have you learned as a ski instructor in how to help and coach your CEOs, your leadership teams? What are some of the lessons that you've learned on the slopes that you transfer over to your work?
Well, it's and you did uncover a little cool factoid on me. I think this was my 8th year of instructing. I happened to be up at Stevens Pass, and after many years with Lion Ski School, and that built on top of 30 years as a volunteer ski patroller, where I did rescues and first aid and things like that. So lots of years and hours on the slope. What I learned is that you have to meet people where they are. Using jargon, assuming they know things doesn't help. Meet them where they are, respect them, and encourage them. And for me, one of the most fun things about teaching people how to ski is seeing where they start and where they end up at the end of a lesson. It's just really gratifying. And then have them come say thanks, just thank you. I couldn't have done that on my own. That's for me. So I guess I got the heart of a coach. I just love doing it, and I love seeing that progress.
So as a ski instructor, you spend a lot of time skiing backwards.
I got pretty good at that, Phil.
watching your students. And so what advice would you have for CEOs so that they can literally ski backwards and watch what's going on?
Yeah. So I think a good leader in that top position, owner, CEO, would do well to get out ahead and then drop back behind and encourage the team from behind. So a little bit out front, flip around, ski backwards a little bit, fall back into line and encourage them from behind. Maybe sometimes just little verbal cues. Hey, do this, nudging them, but letting them do it on their own without being a distraction in front of them. That I've used that in ski lessons, and it works pretty well. Have I used it with leadership teams? Probably, yes. I like to shout encouragement.
speaking of shouting encouragement, we've all probably worked with business leaders, business owners, CEOs, whatever their title happens to be, who hire somebody like you to say, hey, we need our team needs to be fixed. And then you soon find out that it's really not the team that needs to be fixed. But maybe it's a little bit around the CEO that maybe needs to do some changing, maybe too entrenched in the command and control, or maybe other factors. How do you work with someone who has hired you, yet they're the ones that probably need to make the majority of the shifts to get the car running straight?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I want to give an answer that people can put to work right away. It's all about being open and honest with each other, even with the owner. And most employees are afraid to be open and honest. So what I do, particularly starting with a leadership team to model it and then teaching them how to take it down, is the owner needs to give permission for people to tell them things. The owner needs to go through a process of opening up and saying, it's okay to tell me I'm not perfect. It's okay to ask me to do more of this and do less of that, boss. Or you drive me crazy when you do this. So I'm coming back into the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni, and getting that level of trust and getting healthy conflict involves communication. So I like running little programs in leadership team meetings to get people to open up and talk about what they appreciate about each other, what drives them crazy about each other. Please do more of this. Please do less of that. And then turn that into a commitment that says, I commit to do more of that, or I commit to stop doing this. And that really builds team health. That's an ascending spiral. You don't do that in one seminar. This is an ongoing thing that needs to be done, every quarter or so is really what I recommend. Is either I'm facilitating it for them or they're doing it on their own.
So very specifically then, when you're asking them for open communication and feedback, some negative information can come out and people's feelings can get hurt or things like that. And some people naturally will tend to avoid conflict. So what parameters do you give for them to have that safe conversation?
Well, the first thing is they have to trust each other, and then they can engage in some healthy conflict, sort of the next functional level of Lencioni's pyramid. So it takes a little time to build trust, and we're always building trust. And it always helps to preface something we say with a little bit of a buffer. And the one I've adopted that I love to teach people is to always start something that's a little controversial by saying, look, with all due love and respect, you fill in the blank, drive me crazy when you do this. So the idea is to say, look, it's not you, it's your behavior, and you're probably not even aware of it. That way it buffers it and separates it. And instead of it feeling like an attack, it becomes constructive feedback.
Oh, so you're depersonalizing it, and it's not about the person, and it's about a specific behavior or action or outcome. Okay.
Yep. That's a good way to characterize it.
Doug, what's the biggest obstacle, or maybe the most frequent obstacle, that you hear from CEOs to even begin the work? What is that? Yeah, I'd like, because we all think about what we were talking about, health in the beginning and fitness. There's a lot of reasons not to go out and start even walking. It's raining or something. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you run into?
Well, people come up with all kinds of things, but I would say this: when the student is willing, the teacher will appear. So basically the owner needs to reach a level of dissatisfaction, or there's no change. Nothing's going to move. So the dissatisfaction can be across a range of things. It can be dissatisfaction with themselves, with the amount of time they're putting in the business, the profit of the business, the people around them. It doesn't really matter. They just there has to be enough dissatisfaction. I can't create that, Dan. You can't nobody can create it. The dissatisfaction has to come from within the owner, and then it has to be mirrored in the leadership team. They have to want to make changes. So again, the owner, CEO can't force them into that. the group has to collectively say, yes, we're ready to change. So lack of satisfaction is the driving force. Then there are a few little wrinkles in the way, like, well, it's our busy season. We haven't budgeted the money. Okay. I asked the question, when's the best time to plant a tree in your yard? The answer is 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. So another famous analogy is, well, they're like, we're not ready for this. I'm like, oh, right. It's like our spouse when they want to clean the house before the maid comes. Right? That's a classic
International
one.
problem, by the way.
Yes, that's a global problem. So my encouragement to people is, look, there's no prep needed. We meet you where you are. There's always a reason not to do something. But once the dissatisfaction meter gets high enough, it's like, we got to change something around here. And that, to me, that's what makes it work. When they feel like, okay, something's got to change.
Well, Doug, the dissatisfaction meter from our producer, Barb, on me would be high if I didn't take a short break. So we're going to do that. We're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Doug Hall, with resources for CEOs for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we are going to find out a little bit about men versus women. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, Kitsap Sun Newspaper. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Shrink Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I am co-host Phil Simchich, and our guest today is Doug Hall with Resources for CEOs. And for our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
Doug, we're going to turn up the heat on you, buddy. We're going to go plead the fifth, which you can only do once. So if you plead the fifth early, we're going to really throw some curveballs at you.
Oof.
So listen, one of our past guests, Brett Clark, is my fitness trainer, and he was over yesterday, and we were talking about. I said, "Do you have more male clients or female?" He goes, "Female," and he goes, "Quite frankly, they listen better than the men. There's less excuses. They're better listeners," which I think I can see that happening. So my question to you, plead the fifth, Doug Hall: women CEOs are better listeners than male CEOs.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah, no question about that.
So let's move it. Let's move it to do they implement? I mean, is there something their male counterparts can learn about the listening and the implementation from the female CEOs?
I think the difference in female CEOs, they're better at taking team feelings into account.
Gotcha.
It's a more intuitive approach. And I would say that male and female, the implementation skill set is not related to sex. It's related to other factors, but the listening and the intuitive feelings, women have us beat all day long.
That's my experience, because after I got married and I listened, I found my intelligence tripled, but when I was speaking, it was down to about a third.
Amazing how that works, Phil.
Yeah. So what business or leadership lessons did you learn, or can you learn business leadership lessons in your jobs that you have before college, so high school and younger?
I think getting kids to work was really important. The first thing I did to make money was borrowed the lawnmower from my dad and went out and got 5 lawn clients. I think I must have been 13. And I was motivated by dissatisfaction, because I went and said, "Dad, I need money to buy skis and boots for next winter." He said, "Oh, really? How are you going to get that money?" So I was dissatisfied at that moment, and I went and figured out a way. And he was kind enough to not rent me the lawnmower. I had to buy my own gas, but he let me use the lawnmower with no rental. And I made enough money to go to the ski shop and buy my stuff. So I learned a value lesson there, you know, and a buck was worth a buck back then, let me tell you. So it was a big deal. So I encourage kids to get out there and earn money.
So Doug, during our plead the fifth section, this year and the transition, we've got a question that we're going to be asking everybody. So this one is yours. And I've taken your business away from you. You cannot do what you're doing now. I know you have a passion for it, but you can no longer do it. You're going to have to start a new business today based on a hobby. What's the hobby, and what would you do? What kind of business would you turn out now based on that favorite hobby?
Based on my favorite hobby, I would go be a boat captain.
Oh, you would?
For charter boats or something like that. Yeah, because I've really become. I grew up on sailboats around Lake Michigan and little, water skiing. Never had a big boat till a couple of years ago, and I'm entranced by moving large vessels through the water and having people enjoy that experience. So being a charter captain would be something I would try to do if I just had to start all over.
Those jobs are in high demand. I hear there's an opening in the Suez Canal.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a fail there, wasn't it? Yeah, not sure I want to take on that big of a ship.
Yeah, it's like a teenager on a parallel parking adventure when they're learning how to drive.
Indeed.
What changes have you made during COVID in your business that will stick after COVID?
Yeah, great question, Phil. So prior to being self-employed, starting about 10 years ago, I was for 35 years in corporate America in the computer industry. We had things like, we think of Zoom and Microsoft Teams as being new. We had that 20, 25 years ago. So I knew that technology, but we didn't use it, and we didn't use it regularly. So when we came into COVID a year ago, I was accustomed to full day, 7, 8, 9-hour meetings with a leadership team in an offsite. And we had to pivot to using virtual meeting. And my mindset said, hey, 2 hours is all you can do on Zoom. Well, let me tell you, folks, I've learned how to do an 8-hour meeting on Zoom, and it's just as bad as being stuck in an airless hotel room with 6 people. It's just a different bad. So we've had to learn how to navigate using these virtual tools. And what that does for us is it liberates us from having to travel all the time. I think it's going to move in-person meetings up to a higher value exchange. And these digital interactions allow us to be more efficient. Both of them can be highly effective. I'm not saying one's more effective. I'm just saying they're like different dimensions. One's 2D and one's 3D. So use them wisely. And I admit I had head trash a year ago. I'm way beyond that now. I appreciate this electronic, and I appreciate in person, and they're both great in their own time.
So Doug, my next plead the fifth, you can answer based on a professional or personal answer on this. This is just kind of an overarching question. So plead the fifth. Doug, what do you wish you knew? I told you these were going to be tougher. I did warn you.
This is one where I may have to plead the fifth. That's a big question, Dan. That's okay. Everybody has a big question somewhere. So I'll tell you what, I'll ponder that, and I'll have an answer next time.
Let me then change out then, because I know that especially on your LinkedIn, I've seen that you reference the BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals, right? That you help CEOs with that. Plead the fifth. What's your BHAG?
Oh, my BHAG is to help 1,000 business owners get exactly what they want out of their business. That's some form of freedom, money, the right people, the right place. So I'm working on scalable models to take what I teach to large groups of people rather than just one-on-one, because obviously coaching 1,000 companies, I'm not going to live that long. So my BHAG's to help 1,000 business owners, and I'm about 55 in right now. So I've got 945 to go. And so stay tuned for my business model developing for me to chase. And my view of a BHAG is about 10 years out. So I'm about partially into that. So I'm thinking of a 2030 horizon right now to hit that 1,000 mark.
You mentioned you left corporate life about 10 years ago. So how did you overcome the fear of starting your own business, if you had any fears? Plead the fifth.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question, Phil. I realized about 20 years into my career that I was a pretty bad employee. That self-awareness really helped me. So for the next 15 years, I plotted my escape from corporate America. And I knew that being self-employed, first I managed up to 100 people. So I realized I was a pretty good manager, not great. I was probably a better leader than manager, all those details that you have to attend to. So I set about finding a second career where I didn't need to manage, I could lead. And that was CEO roundtables, peer groups, one-on-one coaching. And that led me into this leadership team coaching 5 years ago. So I believe this is my sweet spot, helping leadership teams. And I think that what you have to do is, first of all, I had to get my burn rate down. I had to get kids out of college, get them off the payroll, minimize my overhead so that I could handle the risk of self-employment. And the timing was right for me. So my view is I'm going to keep doing this as long as God gives me breath. I'll probably scale it down a little bit, but I like to remind my clients that retirement is the leading cause of death. So be careful.
Doug, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest here today on the Shrimp Tank. And for our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your business and how you can help them and their leadership teams, how can they get more information?
Hey, hit me up in LinkedIn. Douglas M. Hall is kind of the trailer behind LinkedIn.com. And then you can go to my website, Resources for CEOs, that's FOR. And I kind of have a little array of services there, and I'd love to hear from you and invite you to be a visitor at one of my group programs.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Everyone, make sure you check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And wherever you get your podcast, iHeart, Apple, Google, Spotify, or Stitcher.
Doug, I want to echo thanks for being on the show. It was great to have you. And I think once the border opens, we'll have Phil cross over to this side, and we'll find a way for you to captain us somewhere on the next adventure you have. So thanks for being with us. Listen, everyone, our next show is going to be a week from today on May 26th. Right here on our Facebook page at noon Pacific time. Our guest is going to be Jennifer Fisher with Bellevue LifeSpring. Once in a while, we have some great nonprofit organizations come on the show, and this is going to be one of them. Can't wait to talk with Jennifer. My co-host next week for her Virgin Voyage will be Michelle Baumberger. I know Doug knows Michelle as well, and so excited to have Michelle on board. But for right now, in the meantime, please be safe, be well, be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp